Hello everybody, welcome back to the cabin. Welcome back to Commonwealth. Flipper, I've been waiting to do this video for a while with all the other topics we've been talking about. I thought this one would be especially good for right about now that we're in Q4. I've been asking questions to people out there about how their sales are. I often do this across different social media platforms. And this is the first time in a while I got more people saying that sales are good than more people saying that sales are bad. That doesn't mean it is for you, but I also got an opportunity to, walk through somebody's store a little bit, and they were asking me some questions. I'm not going to mention their name, who it was, not that you'd know them, but I don't want to embarrass them. They told me it was okay if I talked about it, if they thought that me talking about it would help some other people. I thought I'd throw some of this stuff out to you. I bet there's a certain percentage of this audience, and maybe it's you out there, that would agree with this and say that they are guilty of this. So the enemies of reselling, or and this is the micro level and the macro level. We're going to focus on the micro level for the most part today, but I'll throw a few macro things in here, meaning the enemies to all of resellers, and then the micro enemies to resellers. And we're going to talk about that. I think there's a lot of people out there who are going to fall under this category. Maybe you can tell me below if this is you once we get to explaining it. But I've got a lot of sales. Let's take a look. I'll tell you, I don't usually get to talk to, I purposely don't get to talk to people about certain things in reselling, and I almost never look at somebody's eBay store, especially if they're not local, where I can't actually feel it and touch it, if you know what I mean. I want to go look at their processes, because a lot of times that's where the issue lies, and you can't tell that by looking at an eBay store, and I got to do that. I got to look at the actual process, the setup, and it shocked me. I've seen people do this before, but it kind of shocked me how poor this was. I want to talk about that in just a second. This is, obviously, it's a Tupperware pitcher. And these had been down. The market on these had been down a little bit over the last year into like the $12 range. And that, to me, makes it almost not worth it to pick it up for $1 or $2. But this one was nice condition. That's the key when you're dealing with Tupperware. Has the lid. It's all clean and nice. Not in bad shape. Sold for $15 plus shipping. Whenever I sound like I'm giving advice, I always try to be self-critical of myself first. And to me, my kind of kryptonite in reselling for a long time was projects. And they say on the RIN, Reseller Information Network, profits, not projects. And I was pretty guilty of buying a lot of projects that weighed me down time-wise. And this person had a little bit of that as well. When I looked at their death pile, you can figure out a lot about a reseller just by seeing what they have not listed. And there was a ton of projects in that pile. And maybe that's, maybe YouTube resellers are a little bit guilty of that. You see me pick up Rainbow vacuum cleaners and stuff. And this isn't their biggest problem that they had, to be honest with you. But it was one of them, so I want to mention it right off the bat. That death pile, which you have not listed, is a reflection of you. And I know people with massive death piles that are actually pretty good resellers. But I also know a ton of people that just simply love to buy so much. And again, neither of these two was that person's biggest problem, but that's the very first thing I noticed. I'm going to get to some of the other, look who's in here. That's Sparky, y'all. That's that new cat that just literally, after Sophie passed away, the next day that cat showed up on the back porch. I'm like, you knew this was like the only day I could not tell my girls no that they couldn't have this new cat because they were still so sad about Sophie. Anyway, let me talk about this and we'll get back to the topic. GE VCR. GE's not the best brand VCR, but when you can buy them, you can add in. I buy these cables all the time for like 50 cents. I saw a lot the other day on Shop Commons, and I was like, might just buy them all over there. Remote, I always throw in these extra sealed blank VHS, and you can get it to a point where, you might have to pay an extra $1 for that part of it. But, you turn a $5 VCR into a $40 VCR plus shipping. So like I said, looking at that death pile, that wasn't their biggest problem, and I think it's not their biggest enemy. But it is an early indicator of what I was looking at in this person's store. Here's an example of the VCRs. I used to, this is probably 15 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there. Back then you could find VCRs literally. I come home with like 5 every yard sale. So, not every yard sale, but every Saturday. Now I might come home with one on a typical good garage sale day. Sometimes two, sometimes none. But, you know, there's less and less of those things out there. But I could find so many of them, and they were always quick sellers for me, that I had to limit what I was buying. And I put little rules on myself so that I could manage my death pile, because I used to have a pretty good sized death pile. Because you know, in the wintertime, you can't source around here, so I build it up. But my rule was 10. If I had 10 unlisted, I would not allow myself to buy them. And once I got to 10, I would test them all in one day to be more productive, as opposed to pulling everything out and going through the process when I had one. And so that was my little part of, I did it with vacuum cleaners. Like if I had a Rainbow or an Electrolux, if I had one unlisted, I wouldn't let myself buy one. It would force me into listing them. So self-discipline is obviously key. But I want to get into the one thing that I really, really noticed about them that I think is holding them back. I just looked at the next item, and I want to stay on this part of the topic for one more item, because this item applies to it as well before I get to their biggest enemy. They're killing themselves here in this reselling business. All right, I used to be along those same lines, the when in doubt, part it out guy. I really kind of got away from that a little bit. I used to buy vacuum cleaners by the bushels and part it out. And what I found was that, you know, here's my when in doubt, part it out right there. By the way, check over there on eBay for our 50/50 charity auctions. We're doing different merch things and stuff. It's been pretty cool. And I'm going to add, I've done these, and they've done so well on eBay that I want to put one of these lots over on Dibdit.com, and do a 50/50 charity auction over there. But I'm getting far afield. So right here is a Keurig. Oh, it sits on top of the Keurig, and you put your little filters in it. And that's the little reservoir for it. And my wife listed this. Well, she listed all of the parts to that Keurig that no longer worked. This one sold for $11.95 plus shipping. Why I started getting away from some of the parting out, and to be honest with you, I've increased it over the last 6 months. And I think right now it's a great time to do that kind of stuff. But what I was finding is I was pretty, I don't know, how do I say this? For a lot of my life, I was kind of OCD. I was very obsessive about stuff and compulsive about stuff. And it was more when I was younger, but it kind of has gone away slowly for me, thank goodness, because it really did hamper some of my productivity. And what I would find is I would just refuse to leave a piece of that from not being parted out. And it would take time. And you end up inevitably, when you're parting something out, there are some pieces and parts to items that sell way better and way quicker, and that's the key, than others. And so what would happen is there'd be parts that were just so incredibly slow moving. But I couldn't just resist not listing that part. I just couldn't do it. And slowly over time, you've heard me talk about on the Commonwealth Picker channel, if you're a subscriber over there, that I started to do what I call the skinny strip, which is I would have to get it at a good enough price that I would list the higher sell-through rate parts of the when in doubt, parted out item. And I just would refuse to list some of the lower sell-through rates. And so now I've really started to incorporate that part back into my business, especially with higher end vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. Now, this kind of leads to the next part of it, which is perfection sometimes. To me, in my mind, that was perfection. I'm going to squeeze every dime out of every part. Y'all, you know those juicers, the Jack LaLanne juicers that they used to have? I would list the little rubber feet off of the bottom, and they still sell, but they were very slow movers. And I would take the time and do the pictures of those guys and just sit around and wait for them. But by the time I got another one of those, the blades would sell quick and different parts would sell quick. I'd have 3 of those listings sitting around, and it's like, oh my goodness, why am I putting my time into that? And so being very, very aware of how your perfectionist tendencies or your obsessive tendencies might hold you back in the bigger reselling game. That's really what I want to talk about and give you specific examples of this person's store. And there might be a lot of people out there who are going to disagree with what I'm about ready to say. And that's perfectly fine. This is no echo chamber. I say all the time, and I mean it. I constantly change what I'm doing and how I'm doing things by what I see other people doing and what I hear other people telling me in the comments. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of sad this one's going. I love Oscar the Grouch. Whoa. By the way, Jess put these up in here just to tease me. Somebody sent me pineapple lights, and apparently it was underneath that, so it fell down. All right, here we go. This guy, if I can get it out, sold right at the right time, 50 years and counting, for for Sesame Street Santa Claus plush. This one sold for $18.95 plus shipping. There, I'll give you a little bit of my OCD. See, I will think about this incessantly, that there's this empty spot over here. So I gotta fill it up. This is kind of cool, actually. It should sell right now. Look at that. Muppets, but it's a pilgrim. How cool is that one? And it's got the tag. So I'll put that right here. It's not really tall enough, to be honest with you. That grouch was a little bit bigger. But I can manage those kind of things. They don't take too much time. All right, you'll notice I had to also put the Tigger and Pooh snow globe up there. There's just too many blank spots. Any rate, let's get down to this topic. Now that has a little bit of insight into what I knew was holding me back, being self-reflective. This person didn't even realize some of the problems that they had, and they were very receptive to it, but I'm going to say something I think some of you may disagree with. I wanted them to go through a process. I said, just show me what your process is on listing day, for instance, or prep day or whatever. And they took one item out, and they began the process for one item, which I like to kind of differentiate and say, all right, I'm going to take all these pictures, all this testing at the same time, do all that, do the drafts, then go and do them. They were doing one item at a time, which is perfectly fine. There's a lot of people I know who do exactly that. I don't have a problem with that. But the process itself took just a crazy amount of time. From the beginning of deciding on what item they were going to pull out, to the process of picture taking and how many pictures they took, through the listing process, into the description, all of it. I mean, it took them it was insane. Now, granted, they were talking to me and whatever, but it was like a 30 to 40 minute process to list one item. So after this process, now mind you, I didn't give any commentary during the process, none whatsoever. I gotta get this down and get this. I don't even have this thing listed. I looked it up the other day and I'm like, huh. Because we sold one on Dibbed It and it sold pretty well. And I'm like, maybe I'll just list it, or maybe I'll put it over there, take it off of eBay. But I didn't. Look at that. See, it's got two different things on it. How cool is that? At any rate, that's got nothing to do with this. I didn't talk to them at all. I kind of gave them a little time because I didn't want my original commentary to kind of influence what they were actually showing me that they do. Y'all behave. Hey, I'm going to have to kick you out of here. Yeah. This Schlitz on draft. I bought this. Man, what did I pay for this, y'all? Do you remember that video? I don't remember what I paid for it. But it's still, I think maybe $5 is what I feel like I paid for it. But I might have paid up. I might have given them 20. And it sold for $64.95 plus shipping. I used to do this a lot with my AP World History students. I used to say, walk me through the whole process. What are you doing if they weren't finding success? I gotta get these dogs out of here. Hey, come on, pup. Come on. Come on. Come on. You wanna go? Sure you do. And after I could see their whole process, then it would help me give them better answers than just, popping off and saying stuff that might not apply to what they do. All right, so I asked them, my first question, my first thing out of my mouth was, did you just show me this to show me the entire process of, getting the item listed? Or is this literally your process? Meaning, let me show you this first, $54.95. This is a Panasonic ARC Precision Shaving. I picked this sucker up super cheap, actually. And I didn't even know what it was worth, but I just checked to see if everything was in there. And it turned out to be pretty darn good. $54, $55 plus shipping. So first off, just for the record, that's not the process that I think is best. However, I do know some extremely good resellers who do the one item at a time. They take the one item and they go through the whole process at a time. I much prefer the batching. In other words, all the testing done. You find all the items that need testing and test all of them together and get all the testing done first. Then you take the pictures of multiple items. And I like that because, well, I like it for multiple reasons. I don't want to get into that. It's not a topic, really. But since we're talking about it, I also put the measurements in the picture so I can list it somewhere else. I also put it on the scale so you have an idea of the weight. Although most of the time I don't do that because I know how much things basically weigh, and I do flat rate. It's not that big of a deal. And so I do things in batches. Then I take all the pictures. And then I do all the drafts, and then later I'll pick off drafts and list when I have time. So there's many different ways to do it. I'm not saying that's the best way, but I did get to that point with them, but that was by far not their biggest problem. It was the execution of their process. Their process might not have been perfect in my opinion, but it was their execution of their process was really, really bad. I turned out they were a perfectionist, which surprised me a little bit because of their death pile. Once I figured out they were a perfectionist, it explained the death pile. All right, I came out to the other shed to grab something, but I just thought I'd show folks who don't normally watch. It's still a mess in here, my apologies. But this stuff we did pictures today of all this and made drafts. All at one time. The cleaning process first, of course, pull out all the items, clean anything that needs to get cleaned, then take all the pictures, then put them all in drafts. And actually, we're doing the pictures and drafts at the same time. But here, check it out, Brian, if you're watching. This is what's sold right here. I think this is like an alabaster apple, I believe. It didn't sell for much money, but it's pretty cool. I think it sold for $12 plus shipping. So watching this person, it became to me very clear pretty quickly in all processes, including the very beginning, the cleaning. Now, I'm not saying don't clean items, clean items. But their process, like, it would be something like this. To me, if I had this thing right here and I bought it at a garage sale, it's done. It's ready to list. I mean, this thing is clean, right? Well, for them, and the item they were listing didn't equate to this. But for me, you know, this is good. For them, it would require like a spray bottle full of, you know, Windex or something and getting in every little nook and cranny. This thing is clean, y'all. But this would not have been clean enough for them. And I'm not saying, you know, sell dirty items. But sometimes good enough is good enough. And when you take an extra 2 to 3 minutes to clean a clean item, whew, that to me, and I know a lot of people disagree with me, but that just seemed a lot over the top. But the process continued. They took over 20 pictures for an item that I would have taken no more than 5 for. Some items require a bunch of pictures, don't get me wrong. But when you're taking, I mean, I don't know how many I put on this, probably too many, but whew, I can't, just the loading process, the taking the picture process, that took far longer than it should have taken. Then the research. I can go on and just look at the last 6, 8, 10 sold comps, whatever, really quick. I mean, I could do it in seconds to pick the one I want to take and use as mine. I can look at some of the pictures, depending on the item. Some items require much more research, of course, you know, depending on how rare the item is. But that part of their process, deliberating over the exact right price and knowing the time that they're putting into this, they chose a higher price than I would have chosen. So that part of the process too. And you know what? If you're going to take meticulous pictures and make sure everything is absolutely perfect in the cleaning process and everything, you're not going to want to sell it for the lowest price. But this person wasn't niched down. I think if you are niched down, that stuff becomes far more important. But if you're going to let the idea of perfection get in the way of selling that item, and it was going to at the price that they had it at. Now, they had shipping price issues too, but that's not this argument right here. But their overall price was probably in the top 10 percentile of prices. And that to me was the key reason things weren't selling, even though everything else was great on their particular listing. The process of doing the listing itself and filling out every single item detail that was possible. And I know there's a lot of people that advocate for that. I don't. Their description, hand typed out, was like a 4-minute process. Like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I didn't say that. And they're out there probably listening to this. We had this conversation, so I feel okay saying it. It was I'm not kidding you, I didn't time it, but at least 30-minute process to list one item. And I was like, wow, this was a little bit over the top with the pictures that, you know, they had a good listing. Don't get me wrong. Better than most people's. Some of them better than mine. They didn't pay attention to the titling, however. They just took somebody else's title that you could have squeezed 2 or 3 more keywords or put better ordering of the words in there. So I did talk to them about that as well. I'm afraid that might make their process take longer. But if they can eliminate some of the other stuff, I just told them, I said, your enemy is your perfectionism. And it's costing you massive amounts of sales for 2 reasons. One is your perfectionism really causes you to ask for top dollar, which costs you sales. But the other one is you cannot sell things that aren't listed. And they have, 600-800 items back here behind them and 220, 230, I can't remember, listings that were up. So for them, unless they change their processes and their execution of their processes as well, then they better really control the buy side and not buy items that require cleaning, for instance, or are extremely detailed. Here's some bookends. I guess they're marble bookends, and I just picked them up. I saw them. They were $2 at a sale, and I'm like, I wouldn't normally buy that, but for $2, I'm going to buy it. Bookends do okay. Listed them for $30, sent a $5 out. 5% offer out, and they sold quickly, $28.45 for just some normal marble bookends plus shipping. Just one quick example here. These, you know, they're kind of Art Deco-y, right? And so I put that in the title, and it helped out a little bit. That is an Art Deco style. I don't know if it really is Art Deco, but it, you know, if you've seen Art Deco, it kind of looks like that, almost like a building. But, and I think I put MCM in there as well. So, you know, it doesn't hurt to do that stuff. Just because of time, here is a lot that I wasn't like thrilled with listing here. These are cheat codes right here. And there was more money in them if I took the time to list every single one. But, you know, I tell you what, productivity is so important to me that it just didn't make sense to do it like that. So I listed them all together and put a good price on them, and they sold for $22 plus shipping. You know, maybe you can tell me your biggest enemy. What is your kryptonite out there that really you think holds you back in reselling? This is another Enron shirt. This one is just a polo, and all it says is Enron on the sleeve. Sold for $19.95. They're back plus shipping. Apparently blindness is my biggest enemy. I looked at it, I'm like, there's no way that one sold for 20 bucks. I just didn't see it. It's because I pulled the wrong shirt. It was a t-shirt, 20 bucks plus shipping. I think we have our first viewer sale of the day, or at least the first viewer who left a message. And I believe, oh boy, they look brown in the picture, but maybe they're blue. These Crocs, very, very good condition on these Crocs. They sold for $21.80 plus shipping. That's part of the reason I don't pick up shoes if they need anything more than a wipe down. Unless they're like super high dollar, just because time is money. And I broke this down. I'm going to read your message. I broke this down with the person. And the item that they were listing it wasn't a terrible item. I don't remember the exact price. I just remember it being slightly too high. Let's say 20 bucks. And, you know, I'm like, how much you pay for this? Break it down. You got to ship it. I'm like, you're working for like $12 an hour here. So you got to really, I think it's really important. Time versus the money that's coming in for that particular item is huge. Here's the message. Justin, he says, thank you very much for the offer. My son Justin or daughter Bella, Justin, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you're both named Justin. Will love this very much. We love watching you and learning. Have you ever thought about maybe showing how you do your research before you list an item? Thanks once again. Love that you get the entire family involved. Well, thank you, Justin. Unique finds and collectibles. Underscore under each word there. So thank you. Hope you enjoy them, or hope one of them enjoy them. Do I have the right ones? Your son or daughter will love this. You might have older sons or daughters. It's a size 11 men's. So, anyway, you know, I guess it kind of applies, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. It really depends on what the item is, right? If it's got a high sell-through rate, it's an item that everybody knows about. There's hardly any research whatsoever into an item. The only research I do sometimes on items that are fairly normal is if it's not an extreme high sell-through rate item, then I'll filter to the highest price sales. You filter to that, and then you look at the commonality in the listing titles. And sometimes you'll find that one keyword that helps an item sell. It's what I kind of would just mention here, right? Bookends. You know, you might get an extra 3 or 4% of people that are going to search using a word like Art Deco bookend or MCM bookend or something like that. If you can put those words in without taking words out that might be helpful in other ways, I think that's key. So that's the biggest thing for me, is finding the sales that are selling over the typical rate because of the titling of an item. And then instead of undercutting the entire market to get something sold, you just put it at the lowest end of those highest end selling items with a particular keyword in it. So hopefully that's helpful. Longaberger's been selling for us a little bit lately. This is a Longaberger magazine rack. Whoop, almost messed it up. Little magazine basket, you know, you put next to, you used to see these more often, but people don't read magazines as much. It sold for 40 bucks plus shipping. I gotta tell you, sometimes I am also guilty of, when I'm not finding success researching an item that just simply isn't listed, or using, you know, eBay Lens or something like that. Sometimes when you start to get down to the time you're spending on an item, I just cut bait with it in the sense that I'm going to use the best description and keywords I possibly can and put a guess price on it. Sometimes that results in a quick sale because they do know what it is and they do know what it's worth. But to me, that occasional, most of the time it results in the fact that it's going to sit out there and there's no traction on it, so then I need to lower that price. But sometimes it just results in a very quick sale, and I figure it out. And it's like, yeah, I could have listed that for a little bit more, but it's a give and a take, and time is really important. So a couple of jerseys to two different people. One's been out there forever, sold on 30% off, so it's got like 11 and change plus shipping for this Odell Beckham. It's a woman's jersey. And then the Ray Lewis sold for much more, sold for $50 plus shipping. That also explains, I know I said I'd talk about a little macro. I guess I will throw it in here just at the end, but I've got a few more items to pick. And the kids, I might not even have the kids on this video, my apologies, but Reagan's prepping for her first meet of the year. Turner hasn't been feeling great, but we'll see. We'll see how if they want to come in or not. I've even got some criticism about going straight to 30% off once an item hits certain days, not to have a tiered system, 10%, 20%, 30%. And the reason I do it, is there no license plate on that one? Oh, it's on the other side. That reminded me of the license plate that I wanted to... Oh, here it is right here. I guess I'll put that on a bin. Even though it's not true, y'all. It's just trash to cash lore. What was I talking about? Oh, going straight to 30%. The reason I do that is because of time. I figure if something is... My experience in relisting items, looking them up a year later and figuring out what's wrong with them, most of the time the market is down on those particular items. That's why they didn't sell. And so you have to lower the price. So I figured it saves me the time of doing that research on an item a year from now if I can get it sold. And it makes it worth selling it a little cheaper. So I go straight to 30. I don't know if that's the right answer, but it's the right answer for me. Here's a Family Guy Blue Harvest. Looks like a fake, a Darth Vader type deal here. Wacky Wobbler bobblehead. This comes from that giant sale, which was a year and a half ago at this point. This is my buddy's Rod Pick and Punch and Death Bow Picker. And this one did not go for much. It was on 30% off, $11.16 plus shipping. The reason I threw the macro talk into it is because I was going along the lines of being an enemy to resellers. What's your biggest weakness kind of thing. Somebody sent me a message that says, hey, what is the biggest threat to reselling while I was getting ready for this video? I have talked about it before, and their argument was that the criticism that resellers get out there, being lowballers and doing, scavengers and scalpers and all that. I really don't think that's the case, because all those arguments are people just kind of, they're just blowing off steam. They got other issues. This Nike, or Dry Fit, it's not Dry Fit, is it? What is it? Anyway, it's a girl's large size green hoodie, and they're not going for much now. We just reduced the price on them to get them gone. This time of year is good for them. $12.95 plus shipping, paid $2. The reason I don't believe that they're the biggest threat, I'll tell you what I think is, but not going to, elaborate on that, because I've done other videos and I'll do some in the future. But I just don't think it is, because those very same people who say that stuff, they're out there searching on the internet for deals and whatever, and they're buying on eBay, they're buying on different platforms, and I just don't think it's that big a deal. People act in their own best interest most of the time. And if that means they're buying from a reseller who's making, 30, 40, 50, 60% on an item, they're going to do it because it's in their own best interest, because they don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn and go out and look for a particular item that they might not ever find. They'd rather just pay for the convenience. I say all the time, we're kind of like personal shoppers, except we don't know who we're shopping for. The biggest threat to reselling, I've said it many times, it is regulation, litigation are the two biggest threats to reselling. It's the only thing that will derail what I see as a growing industry for many, many, many years to come. Y'all, I think I might make this the deal of the day over on eBay, since I know I've had people ask me about it, and it sold really well on a Dibdit live show. There's Little Red Riding Hood, but check this out right here. These are called something, I don't know what. Look, on the back side of that, you have Granny. So you got all three of them. That's just really cool. So we'll put that over there. Dibdit deal of the day. Speaking of Dibdit, we're having a Christmas show. Come on over and join us. We're having a stocking stuffer show. I'm going to have guests on to sell with me. Should be fun. It should be some pretty good deals you can buy for Christmas. This is Dibdit.com. We're going to be doing Shop Common shows as well. We've been doing them. If you guys saw this shed earlier today, we packed up it was like just packed up past the TV. Tons of sales over there on live shows and Shop Commons. This, I believe, is the right one. And it is a funky one. I don't know the name of it, but it's an interesting one. And this one's sold. Let me make sure it's the right one. Sure looks like the right one. Mixed Up Teen. Okay. $9.07 went off on 30% off plus shipping. And we have, I think a bunch of them are on 30% off if you're looking for a white elephant gift or something. Or a stocking stuffer for a sports fan. Or we got different ones. Not bad, I guess, since we're into them for $1. $9.07 plus shipping. Sold another 30% off item, which is good. I'm happy when that happens. I know, you know, if you buy cheap enough. Where is this one? I think it's over here. There it is. It's a multimeter. But if you buy cheap enough, you can do that and not have things sitting in your store forever. Keep that sell-through rate up. Give yourself a better chance in the old algorithm. And that is a Sperry multimeter. I believe I paid $1 for this one. I believe. $14.66 plus shipping. Y'all, I'm a little surprised here. I've had 5 sales since I started filming, which is really cool. And I had to do, this is a 4th video this week because I'm going to be gone a little bit and I just couldn't jam 40 sales into the last video. And I just like, well, maybe I'll get enough sales, and now we got more than enough. I could keep going, but I'm not going to because I got to go away for a couple of days and then I'll be back and I'll ship these. I've got 2 days shipping on them. And yeah, I can ship them out the day I get back because they just sold. So any rate, that's a pretty good day of sales. No real high end, and we've been having tons of high end lately. Here's a $50 item, $40 item, $55 item, but lots of little sales, 10 to 15 bucks, and a few other good ones. There's a $65 sale, $30 sale, so it's a good little mix, but not that big banger that we've had. Can't believe I just said that multiple times in the last few days. So let me know how your sales are going. What is your biggest hurdle that you know you need to overcome for reselling? And maybe someday we'll get a little bit more in depth into the macro threats to reselling, which a lot of it's out of our control. Not all of it, but a lot of it is. So let me know in the comments. Look who came back in here. It's because, well, I was going to show you the new cat, y'all. Sparky is his name, apparently, which Bubba came up with. It's because he's like a fire ringtail Siamese something or other. Now he's learned that there are treats in here, but you also got to learn you can't get on anything. And I don't let you back here, so I'm going to have to go track this pretty kitty down. And I got a few more things to do as well. Oh, you know what? I need to do a giveaway. You want to say hi to everybody? You don't care. That tail, though. It's a pretty cat. Tammy Bowers. Let's see if I can get the name exactly right here. Tammy Bowers 6919. Send me an email at commonwealthpicker@gmail.com. You are the winner of the Dick Dastardly, the Muttley shirt. The Muttley t-shirt from 80stees.com. And we can get you one in your size. Send me your information. I'll pass it on to them, and they'll send it out to you for free. If you are interested in buying some gifts, go to 80stees.com. Use code Commonwealth. They are a little pricey, but you can get 30 or 35% off if you use that code, and they have just thousands of shirts. 80stees.com. Reagan in here, and I know she would want me to remind you about her ornaments, and she is going through the process of doing the donations with me this year, which is kind of cool, and I'm paying her at the same time. That's why she wants to do the donations with me, because I know she knows she'll get paid afterwards. So she'll want me to say there are still a few ornaments left over on CommonwealthPicker.com, and those black lights. And we're going to be doing those kind of a little bit discounted on Dibdit.com on the lives, the live Christmas shows as well. I've set a few aside for those shows as well. So, at any rate, don't forget to get your sticker at CommonwealthPicker.com. There you go. And I don't have any jokes for you. Turner will have to do the Commonwealth comedy. Thank y'all for joining us, and I can't wait to see you next time.